confident in saying, for the first time for a big boxing event at Stevenage Football Club. Open air, May the 18th, the King of Hearts in action against Shefat Isufi, who's alongside me here, and Frank, the promoter. And it's something different, Frank.
It certainly is. We were looking for a venue for May, and we were struggling a bit. And then the idea in the office of why don't we go local? And here we've got a great facility, fantastic facility, which we spoke to people here at Stevenage, and they were very, very helpful in helping us to get this arranged. And at the moment it's subject to licensing, but that's pretty imminent, so that won't be a problem. And we're delivering Bill home advantage. I mean, proper home advantage. He only lives down the road. We're in Hertfordshire. The King of Hearts is here, and he wants to become king of the super middleweights, and that's what this is all about. This is the road to that. I
like the slogan. Is that your idea?
I'll come up with the Hearts. Well, we had a few Hearts, didn't we? Hearts Attack, various different things. King of Hearts.
And just literally just down the road from where you live, Billy. This is ideal for you, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, just want to say obviously thanks to Frank Warren and Stevenage Football Ground and the management, MTK, all for making this happen. I know they've been working hard on it. You know, but this is like a good homecoming for me, because I've always boxed. You know, I'm from around London, always trained in London, but it's a bit of pressure on this one because, you know, I've never boxed, you know, 4 or 5 miles from home, and so obviously it's no good having a lovely big venue like this, 8,000 in it, and or 7,000, and
it's 10 to 12.
Well, 10 to 12, and that's more pressure. So and not performing. So you know, I've got to make sure that I'm on my game. You know, I know that my opponent over there is going to be looking to do a number on me, the same as I'm on him. So you know, I'm ahead of schedule, and I can't wait for the night. I think it's going to be a brilliant atmosphere here, and a good fight, most definitely.
And working with Ben again, rather than Dominic Ingle, you've made the change there.
Yeah, I mean, I just felt that I'm one of these fighters that I need to be. My mind's got to keep focused, and I've got to set new challenges. And you know, I love the Ingle gym. I love working with Dom, and you know, Ben was even saying the other day, and I was having a chat with him, that you know, Dom may even be in the corner. So you know, there's no hard feelings there. But I just feel with Ben that I've worked from 2012, always done a bit with him, and you know, I had a bad performance in Scotland, what was down to myself, and I think we got a bit of unfinished business there, and I want to obviously put my skills on proper form, and you know, try to beat the David Lemieux performance, and I think that Ben can bring that out of me.
Yeah, before that fight in Scotland, when it's the Russian guy, wasn't it? Before then, you'd let yourself get out of shape big time, and Ben, you know, did his best, but in a way he was fighting against the odds.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I just fell out in love with the sport completely, and you know, I became world champion. It was like a dream come true, and you think, well, was that the dream? And you know, I think that in boxing you've got to have momentum, and I didn't really have it. And you know, just like I said, I fell out of love with the sport, but you know, I think that there's a lot of unfinished business left in me yet, and I know that nobody ain't seen the best of me. So this is a big step, moving up to super middleweight, and one I believe I can be the best in. A tough opponent, first fight at it, and you know, he's #1 in the WBO for a reason. So I'm sure that me and the winner out of me and him will either be stayed as the world champion, or will go on to fight Ramirez.
We'll talk about the fight itself and speak to Shefat in a moment, but just tell us about 2018, Billy, because it was really, in a lot of ways, it all went wrong.
I mean, it's one of them. I can't dress it up. I can't make it sound good. It was what it was. I had the Martin Murray date penciled in. Got an injury first at the start of camp, and then the second one I got an injury halfway through camp, and you know, it just completely messed my momentum up. And I didn't lose interest in boxing because I was always in the gym, but I was sort of waiting for the big fight to come rather than, you know, I expected beating David Lemieux, then the big ones to come, but I scared them off. And perhaps that performance was good for myself and to look back on, but it wasn't good for business, and you know, it was what it was. So, but the main thing is now that, you know, I've never been more determined to be back as world champion than I am now. So I've got a lot to prove this year.
Yeah, I know you've said that you felt in some ways with the problems outside the ring that you kind of let yourself down. In a way, this is a, you know, it's King of Hearts, that's what they're calling it, but in a way it's a redemption sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's no, it's like I said, it's no secret. I had a terrible year last year in and outside of the ring. So, you know, that's all behind me now. I'm looking forward to the new year. Like I say, I've got it now. My date, obviously May, and I know that I've got to be on top flight for this man. I know that I've got to be on top flight, and I will be.
Let's hear a little bit from Shefat, who's Albanian by birth, now fighting out of Munich in Germany, and a huge opportunity for him. He's coming here, little known, I guess, to most of you here, but he's got a ranking, as Billy said, for a reason, and he's here to prove that the odds are wrong, and he's looking to make the party and the homecoming and the redemption night for Billy into a bad one. Can I ask what Shefat thinks of Billy as a fighter and how he thinks he's going to win it?
Ich kenne ihn nicht so gut, Billy. Ich habe nicht viel geschaut von seiner Kämpfe.
Like always, he doesn't watch so much the other fighter because that's what the trainers are for. So he always doesn't prepare himself by looking at the other component. Instead, just preparing what the trainer tells him because he thinks it obstructs him from his preparation. So the question, he knows, of course, Billy Joe Saunders, and obviously he's a very good fighter. So that's clear. But he didn't go very much into that. That's the part of the training and the trainer. Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
No.
A lot of people have found Billy very difficult to get to. He's mobile. He's got great reactions. Are you confident that you can find a way to actually put pressure on him and find the targets?
Also das kann man erstmals im Kampf anschauen. Ich will alles geben, ich will dann das Kampf gewinnen und das Gürtel in München bringen. Er kann schnell sein, er kann alles machen, aber ich habe auch meine Technik.
Okay, Billy is certainly very fast and very quick. He has a very strong punch. So for him, he says in the fight, it's the first time they're gonna meet, and he is preparing himself, of course, obviously with speed and mindly with the intention to win. And he says he's very confident that he's gonna give him a hard time in the ring.
You've heard Frank Warren saying that there could be 10, 12,000 people here, most of whom are going to be roaring their encouragement for Billy Joe. How are you going to react to that?
Er kann auch 1 Million Leute haben in der Ringe, aber im Ring wir stehen nur wir,
Okay,
ich und ihn.
he can have 1 million people, but in the ring it's only him and you. And so he says he doesn't care because at the end it's in the ring where the fight is going to be won, and that's where he concentrates on. And obviously it's going to be a tough one, but he's very self-centered and very self-confident, so he can master.
I know Shefat was telling me that he's been in boxing since he was 9, 10 years old, so it's been his life, as indeed it has Billy Joe's. If you were to win this, what would it mean to you, and maybe obviously you're based in Germany, but what would it mean to Albania if you were to win this?
Also die Frage ist, was würde es für dich bedeuten, wenn du gewinnst? Das ist die erste Frage.
Also erstmal will ich konzentrieren, erstmal in diese Kampf, was kommt, und für die nächste Plane muss man anschauen, muss man reden zusammen, aber erstmal bin ich konzentriert 100% in diese Kampf.
Okay, what he's saying is basically he promised his father on the deathbed. His father died when he was in a very young age of 9. He promised his father to fight the world champion title because his father was a big box fan, and he is now to exactly that fight. So it's a very strong promise for him towards his father. That's the first thing, and the second question was, wie gehst du damit um?
What it would mean as an Albanian to
wie es in Albanien ist, wie die Albaner darauf reagieren werden.
Ja, wir haben noch nicht Weltmeister gehabt und die warten alle, dass ich erste Weltmeister werde.
Albania never had a world champion, and they're all waiting, of course, to have a world champion to celebrate. And obviously, he's already well known in Albania, but it would give him, of course, another push to be world master, clear, or interim master.
Frank, what's the situation with the status of this fight? Because it was originally going to be for the WBO super heavyweight title.
Yeah, what happened was Ramos, who's the champion, he called the WBO and said he was going to vacate the title. They put the fight out between the mandatory, which is Isufi, and Bill moved up under their regulations, became the number 2. Put it out for purse bids. We agreed terms very quickly between our teams and announced the fight, and then Ramirez came back and said no, he hadn't confirmed in writing he was going to vacate the title, and therefore this fight was made for a interim title. In the meantime, Ramos is fighting in a couple of weeks' time at light heavyweight, and I don't think he can make the weight again, but I believe he'll either vacate the title or if he does fight light heavyweight, the winner of this will be declared the full champion. But in the meantime, you know, Isufi is the number 1.
Yeah.
He's undefeated at super middleweight. He started off as cruiserweight, then he went to light heavyweight. I think in his last 16 fights, he's won 15 of them, and he's on a 10-fight win roll, as I say, undefeated at super middleweight.
Do you see your long-term future now at super middle, Billy?
It's one of those that it all depends what opportunity presents itself, because you know, people say that I'm not a big super middleweight, but you know, I'm a big middleweight. So you know, I don't fight with strengths and power and, you know, slug. I box with my brain. So you know, my potential career at super middleweight or middleweight is very truly open. So I can box at both, but I'm just giving myself as Frank and know, you know, we tried to heaven and earth to make the big fights at middle. Even when I was world champion, I think my styles were just wrong for certain fighters. So we're going to have a go at super middleweight.
Who do you think are the principal people who've avoided you? Who's really not wanted it? Well,
You know, I think that Frank Warren, you know, he knows every single time he's put a phone call through to me and said, like, the Canelo fight's happening, I've signed. The Golovkin fight's happening twice, I've signed. The Eubank fight's happening, I've signed. I think that people just wait for me to get that little bit of age settling where, you know, I'm not as good, as my reflexes ain't as good anymore. But what they don't realise is I'm just coming in my prime now. I'm 29, you know, I've not got miles on the clock. Out of my full 27 fights, if I've took 10 good punches, I suppose that's a lot. And I've been in with some good opposition, so I'm just settling into my prime now, and I'm going to show people this year what I've got. So if they don't want to fight me this year, I'll just beat whoever they put in front of me.
How much of an avoided man has he been, Frank?
Very avoided. You know what Bill just said. We signed twice to fight Golovkin. They sent the contracts over. We returned them. He pulled out after the Danny Jacobs fight. Golovkin said that then we're going to wait for Canelo. They were going to fight in the summer, so that didn't happen. Canelo doesn't want to fight him. You know, I know that, and I know that from his team. When we was in Canada and Bill done a job on Lemieux out there, which is also a Golden Boy fighter. He was a Golden Boy fighter. I looked across, and the look I got back was like, forget about it. I said to Bill after the fight, I said, you just lost that fight with Canelo.
Was that Oscar De La Hoya?
Yeah, that's the team there. Yeah, so that was what it was. They don't want to know. And I got to be honest, if I was Canelo, I wouldn't want to fight Billy Joe Saunders. I wouldn't want to fight. Bill's a very, you know, you look at him, as he just said, he's taken 10 big punches in his career. He's been in control of all of his fights, even when he's been in fights where he's been unfit. And I mean that with the greatest respect. You know, where he's had like the fight up in Scotland, which wasn't, as he said, wasn't Ben's fault. But you look at those fights, he's won them all. Even was it about a month ago, we were trying to make the fight with Eubanks. And Eubanks, they don't want to know. No matter what they say, what excuse they put up, they didn't want to know. You know why they don't want to know? Because he knows he'll get beat. I don't see any fighter that's lost a fight, that has a chance to make a rematch, to set the record straight, who doesn't take it. They want it, they want to do it. They did not want it at all in any circumstances. And that tells me all I need to know, and confirms all I do know about Billy Joe Saunders.
Eubank was tweeting, I think, yesterday, saying if there's a title at stake, I'll be there, I'll be ready. Do you take that at face
Well,
value?
let's, I'll say this with the greatest respect. He's got a title, hasn't he? Was it the IBO? So they would, well, I agree with you, but he's got a title. Listen, that's what they sold the fight on. The last fight he had, they sold it on for an IBO title. So there was the IBO title for him to defend it against Bill. What's the title? The title I would want if I was Chris Eubanks is that I went out there and I got revenge. That's the title of him. I've got the situation back as it should be. That I'm the better fighter. That's all he needs. No belts or nothing. It's called at the end of the day a bit of self-respect.
Would you welcome that, Billy? I know you shouldn't be looking past this fella really, but would you like to just end the argument once and for all and have Eubank again?
Well, look, there's no argument in my case. I go to bed every night knowing that I'm undefeated and I've beat him. I know that he goes to bed every night.
70% fit.
He goes to bed every night thinking, well, he beat me. So, the only other fighter to beat him is George Groves, and he's retired. I'm the only active fighter there who's beat him. And, if that fight was to come across and present itself in the right circumstances and it made sense for everybody, 100% it could happen. But at the moment, I've got a job to do on my opponent sitting over here, and I know this man's coming to take my head off. So, he's up against it. I know what it's like to walk in the lion's den, as I did in Canada and been in a few other places. When you're up against it, you perform more. So I've got to be extra focused and extra careful with this one. So, but we'll see. I'm sure that we'll see the situation with the world title status and goes on. I'm sure it'd be easier fight to make with the world title, but if not, like I say, I'm open to any super middleweight or any middleweight in the world.
Let's bring Ben in for a word. Back working with Billy Joe. When did you actually learn that you were going to be working with the man again?
It's not really again, because I've always worked with Billy Joe sort of on a technical side for many years, and for that fight in Scotland that you talk about there, I didn't train him for that fight. I sort of stepped in the last minute on the situation to make the best of a bad situation. So it was what it was, but we carried on doing some sessions the other week, and he gave me a call, and that was it really. And obviously when Tyson was in a bit of a bad position, Billy Joe sort of put us together and sort of helped Tyson in that respect. And now Billy Joe's in a position where he needs to kick on with his career after sort of an inactive year, and we're all there to help each other and work with each other. And one thing that always stands in my mind is Paris always said to me that she'd always remember, and she's always grateful that when Tyson was in a bad position, she remembers that Billy Joe was the one that always rang him and always tried to encourage him to get back in the gym, and always done the best he could to try and bring Tyson back on the right path. And so they want to see each other succeed, and they want the best for each other, and they make a good little team there.
Well, he's going to be fighting in June. And are you going to be having them actually in training together then, working together?
Yeah, they're working together now. We're all working out of Ricky Hatton's gym at the minute. We're all working together, and like I say, it makes a good little team that we've got there.
How much do you enjoy working with the two of them? Because what's a nice way of putting it? They're characters, aren't they?
Yeah, in the gym's fantastic. Out of it can be hard work, but they're like I say, they're good friends. They get on. They want the best for each other, and you can't ask for more than that. It only adds for a very good recipe.
How much talent has this fella sitting next to you got? If you could describe his attributes.
He should be leaving the sport known as one of the best fighters out of Britain ever, and that's it. Very, very simple, and probably beyond that.
So what, in your opinion, has he got to achieve in the... I know he's said in the past he doesn't think he particularly wants to be in the sport after the age of 31, so you've got to get on with it. What do you think is needed for him to be able to walk away one day being able to say that?
Unfortunately for Billy Joe, he's the type of fighter that nobody's going to want to take the risk against, because when he's on it, I think the rest of the middleweight division and probably the super middleweight division know that they're not going to be able to touch him, and it's always going to be difficult, unfortunately, for Billy Joe to get those fights. But obviously, Frank, MTK, and everybody's going to do their best to try and make those fights and force those fights, and then whenever Billy Joe has been stepped up and forced into that position, he's produced the goods.
You must have had a good look at Shefat and what he's about as a fighter. Tell us how you analyse him. If you were to look at him and think about his strengths, his weaknesses, what do you think of him as a fighter?
Yeah, if you give him an opportunity and he lets his hands go, he lets his hands go well. He's got fast hands when he lets them go, punches with variety, punches well. And if you get too greedy with him, you'll get made to pay for it. So listen, you don't get to #1 at WBO for no reason, and it's going to be a stern test. But Billy Joe produced the goods.
What do you think your best day so far has been, Bill? Was it the David Lemieux fight? Was that the best that you've been so far?
I think that, you know, the best I've been so far is in the gym, what nobody's seen. You know, I think that David Lemieux fight was obviously a good performance, but you know, I know that even walking to the ring of that fight, I was thinking, this ain't no Golovkin though, even in my own head. You know, I would do what I need to do. I step up to the level of opposition, and you know, I've only ever once or twice shot myself in the gym and thinking, well, I'm happy today. You know, that can beat anyone on the planet, and I've never showed it. But you know, looking on performances, you have to say like the David Lemieux performance was a good performance. But then you can look and say, well, David Lemieux was rubbish. But this was it because of the way I made him look? We don't know. So it'd be interesting to see how good I am when I step up to someone who can tick all the boxes. You know, if I give them an answer, they can tick it. If I give them another answer, they can tick it. And see how many I can tick. But I believe that I am the best middleweight and super middleweight out there now.
In the world?
That's what I believe.
Bar none?
Bar none.
Well, you've heard what it's all about and what the fight's coming up and how the bill's going to be panning out. And Frank, people who are wanting to come here, what's the ticket situation? It has to be cleared with the local council first.
Yeah, that's pretty imminent. But the tickets will go on sale on April the 1st, so you've got to be, you know, got to be really quick to get them. It'll be set up for between 10 to 12,000 people here. It's going to be a great, obviously, for Hertfordshire, supporters of Stevenage Football Club. All those guys are going to be first in the queue, I'm sure. And if you're coming from London, Finsbury Park to get to here is, was it just over 20 minutes?
Yeah,
so
easy.
it's not a difficult place to get to. So I expect a sellout, great atmosphere. It's going to be open air, and with the greatest respect, I see my man coming through, and I see him going on to bigger and better things. But I know you guys got a different view of that.
He doesn't speak a lot of English, but
He
he understands quite a lot. He knows what they're
I just
saying.
want to say, Frank's put this on in Stevenage so he can get drunk and walk home.
The truth of the matter, I put it on in Stevenage because I don't want to pay for any hotel for it. It's hotel.
The caravans will be outside
No,
next
they're
week.
all
Right, we'll be doing face-to-face photographs in a moment or two, and of course, I will do that out on the pitch, I'm being told. And they'll both be available for interviews for those who want. But in the meantime, any questions from the floor before we do that? Anybody want to shout anything out? Yeah.
Yeah, I think Shefat's been as high as like cruiserweight. Does his size worry you at all, Bill?
I think that when someone's got lateral movement like myself and a boxing brain, I think that size plays my advantage. Obviously that, you know, you can't walk in the ring without getting wet, so I've got to be very careful, and you know, I've got to take him very, very seriously because obviously he can punch, and like I say, he's #1 in the WBO for a reason, so the size will play a factor in this fight, but I think it'll play on my behalf.
And have you got one eye on Gilberto Ramirez as he chooses to stick around?
I mean, it's always one eye on being world champion, and like I said, I had a chat with Frank and MTK before we made this fight and said, look, if he don't vacate, we're happy to fight him. So, but one job at a time.
Yes.
Mr. Warren, you've had it in Stevenage in Hertfordshire. Would you be looking at local talent for the undercard as well?
Yes, there'll be some local guys on there. We're making the undercard up this week, and we'll be announcing that. There'll be most of the fighters on the undercard will come from this area or London.
You're also looking at other local grounds to make this, I think, for the future. Maybe Kenworth Road for the future for maybe Lance Olivia.
Maybe we'll see what happens. But this is the hometown for us. This is the home ground. So this is where we're going to be making a birdie for, and hopefully, you know, maybe Bill comes back and makes a defence of the title here if he wins it.
Always a special atmosphere open there as well, isn't it? I mean, you
Yeah,
think
it's an occasion,
think
yeah,
about
it's-
Elland Road last summer. It was a fabulous occasion.
It will be,
and this can be the same.
It will be. I think it's going to be an exciting night, and as I say, we're going to have a great undercard, and this fight's going to be a good fight. There's no doubt about it. As I say, you know, I look at the fact that Stephen come down from, what was it, cruiserweight down to light heavyweight, and the fact he is undefeated at super middle. He's got the bit between his teeth, and as Ben said, you get to a number one position for a reason, and Bill's got to be top of his game to win this fight.
Any more? Any more for any more? Answer that phone.
Danny at the back.
Yes.
Danny at the back.
That's almost all me. Bill, you said when you were walking down to the ring for the Lemieux fight, you were still thinking in the back of your head, well, he's not Golovkin. When you fight someone like Isufi, and no disrespect to him, he's probably not the test on paper that Lemieux was. Where do you find your motivation?
I find that it's a new chapter. You know, I've had plenty of setbacks in 2018. It's about proving to people and showing people who I am and what I can do. So that's where the motivation is coming here. Determination to put my skills on the line and to get people to notice me at this 168 and say, well, look, he's a threat, or let's get him over. It's a good fight for Ramirez, or it's a good fight for Callum Smith, or you know, one of the others. So. Determination, definitely.
Yeah, since you mentioned Callum Smith there, would you fancy that fight?
Most definitely. You know, I think that I mentioned it to Frank before, that it'd be interesting to make. So he's a great fighter, Callum Smith. Probably one of the best at super middleweight, but he's the type that I really want to put myself up against and to test myself. World champion, so it'd definitely be hard to say no to that fight.
You're not worried about his size, are you? Could you talk about going up? I mean, he's built like a light heavyweight.
Built like a cruiserweight.
I mean, listen, the size factor is a very, very big.
We saw that with Garcia and
Yeah, most definitely. But I think that, you know, Garcia boxed with his face and not with his brain, and I think with fighters like him, you have to do the same. You know, struggling to make the 160 out, I'm sure he's a big lad for it, where I'll be not as struggling as bad. And you know, it's about tactics, that sort of fight, and definitely won't worry about the size.
Billy, obviously, if you can get past your opponent in May, is a fight with Demetrius Andrade something you should be interested in for this year?
Most definitely, I'm getting myself in a position with the super middleweights for a reason, and putting myself in a certain situation with the WBO. I'm trying to get to number one, and you know, if I get to that number one spot and be world champion, then I can drop down and I'm automatically mandatory for it. So, you know, there's a reason and a method behind what we're doing. We're not just doing it because I can't make 11 stone 6, what people are saying. People can see now I'm in good shape. Been in the gym most of the year last year. So, you know, 100%, I've definitely got unfinished business at that weight for that belt.
Any more?
Are we all done?
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. We'll do some face-to-face photographs out on the pitch now.